He's more than an athlete. He's an artist.
I think you're in love, Ron.
Shut up.
Victor, I love you. Victor, I do.
When we're apart, my heart beats only.
Harry Potter!
Hey, my eyes aren't glistening with the ghost of my past.
I'm not an owl.
Technically, it's a fact.
Ah, c'est magnifique.
Kill the stag.
Avada Kedavra! Barty Crouch!
Behaving like a babbling, bumbling band of baboons.
Junior.
Hey there, everybody. I'm excited to share with you this week's episode of Retold, where Professor Julian and I talk about chapters 5 and 6 of the Goblet of Fire. I love all of my guest hosts the same. They're all wonderful, but it was something really special to get to have Julian on this podcast. He has his own podcast. You'll hear us talk about that. He's so kind, so gracious, very knowledgeable, and it was just a blast having him on, and I think you're going to love this episode. But I wanted to hop on real quick just before the episode begins to clarify something. Last week, you may have seen on the feed that I released an anime retelling covering season 1, part 1 of Frieren with my wife. And so I just want to say, if you're a little confused about that, a thing I've said every once in a while on this podcast is that eventually I would like to retell other things, especially anime, because my wife and I, we love anime. And Frieren is a fantasy anime, and I thought that would fit well with the vibe of this podcast. And it's also a story that I love so much. Now, I want to make something clear, and I said this on that episode. For as long as it can possibly be, I want this podcast to be a Harry Potter podcast. I want to talk about the books. I want to talk about the movies. I want to talk about the TV shows, the plays, the musicals, the extended lore, the Potter Puppet Pals, all that kind of stuff. So I want to do Harry Potter for a very long time on this podcast. But I also want to talk about other works of fantasy. I want to get to Lord of the Rings. I want to get to Pirates of the Caribbean, other franchises that I love. And I figured I could probably start releasing some of those episodes now and have them come out alongside Harry Potter each week. So Harry Potter will still be a thing that you hear every single week. And then maybe every other week, at least for the time being, my wife and I have planned to go through Frieren because season 2 will be coming out soon. And I just loved that show. And I think if you like Potter or Lord of the Rings, you would really like that show. But all that to say, I really care what you guys think and want to provide something that you enjoy and want to listen to. And so if you saw that on the feed and you're like, I'm not really about that, I don't enjoy that, just let me know. And if enough people don't like that, then I'll be happy to make another podcast for that. But if you do like it, fantastic. I only bring it up because I know sometimes if a podcast that I'm listening to starts to cover something different, it does throw me off a little bit. So I just wanted to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on that. But anyway, I hope you enjoy the podcast this week. Enjoy. Well, hello, everybody. And thank you for listening to Retold, the podcast where I retell you my favorite story of all time, Harry Potter. We are currently at the beginning of season 4, going through Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Today, we will be recapping chapters 5 and 6 from the Goblet of Fire. But I never take this journey alone. I always have with me some very special guests. And with me this week, we have the one, the only, Julian. Hi, Julian.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Barry. Everyone, we're all here together.
That's right. Listeners, I am so excited for this episode. Julian is such a wonderful, fascinating, unique person. I'm so glad that he's joined us for this podcast. He is a professor who teaches Harry Potter for his class. He has his own Harry Potter podcast called Critical Magic Theory, and we'll get into all that in just a second. But first, Julian, every time I have a guest on, I ask them for their fandom ID. So just for my listeners to get to know you a little bit better, we would like you to answer the questions of what is your Hogwarts house? What is your favorite Harry Potter book? Your favorite Harry Potter movie? And how did you get into the Harry Potter series?
Sure. Okay. So I'm a proud Slytherin. Proud. My favorite book is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince because I love the fact that we really get to understand who Voldemort is and kind of go back and kind of dive into what makes him tick. My favorite movie is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. I love it
Wow.
so much.
That's a hot
It's one of-
take. That's a hot take.
apparently so, and I love Part 1. I think it strikes all the right chords. I think all of the moments are really good, and I also think that there's something about the kind of emotional pieces of it, right? Like we get the wedding at the beginning, we get the beginning moments where everyone is having to leave their homes, or when Hermione's leaving her home and Harry's leaving Privet Drive, and I don't know, there's something very it's very tense, but in a way that is everything coming to a head. And I love it. That's my go-to comfort Harry Potter movie is that one.
Two things about that movie. One was that, and slight spoiler, listeners, but we just ranked our favorite Christmas gifts of the Harry Potter series. And my number one, it's from that movie. It's the wreath of roses that Hermione puts on Harry's parents' grave. Like, what a touching moment. Love that so much.
That scene is just amazing. It's such a beautiful, beautiful scene. And yeah, there's something about the really, I think, meaningful intention of not having them be polyjuiced when they go in and him being there. And yeah, I could talk about it for ages, but I really do love that scene.
Yeah.
And then how did I get into Harry Potter?
Oh, wait, real quick. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
Before you move on, the funny thing to me about 7 Part 1 is that I did not know when it came out in theaters that it was going to be a Part 1. And I had already read the books. And so when we're in the movie theater, I knew the length of the movie, and they're not even at the Malfoy Manor yet. And I'm going, I don't think they got time. I don't know how they're going to do this.
How are we going to
It
pull
ended
this
at the
off?
halfway point, and I was like, what? There's going to be I thought it was going to end all that night. And I was.
Yeah.
wrong.
I got into Harry Potter because I had always had a fascination as a kid with the fantastical. And I was at the Scholastic Book Fair at my school when I was 11 or 12. And I saw the third book, and I realized this is my vibe. And I read the synopsis, and I was like, oh yeah. So then I got it. But at the time, I wasn't really allowed to read things about witchcraft. And so I was reading it late at night. And exactly. Kind of like Harry, in the beginning of the Prisoner of Azkaban movie. But then I realized I got the third book first. So then I had to go back and get this first book. And so then I read it in a night because I was so captivated. And then my obsession just kind of went from there. And then
How
I
old
had
were
to
you?
I think I was 11 or 12.
Okay.
So
Very
I grew
cool.
up with the books.
Yeah, I love that.
When the 7th book came out, I was 18. I had just turned 18. And I was graduating from high school, and they were leaving Hogwarts. And then when the last movie came out, I was graduating college. So my entire kind of early childhood into my adulthood has kind of been bookmarked by particular Harry Potter moments.
That's awesome. And then when you got your professorship, Fantastic Beasts were coming out.
Yeah.
I just a guess. I didn't know. But,
I'm trying to think. I was in graduate school when the first one came out, and then I think those ones were a little bit less strategic, so I don't remember exactly the.
They were just maybe this year you can have one.
Yeah, you might get one. But yeah, a lot of the moments were kind of bookmarked by Harry Potter moments.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Happy to have you on the podcast.
Great.
Listeners, this is, I am absolutely honored. I hope you guys go check out his podcast, and I could ramble on about it, and I will in a minute. But first, Julian, can you tell us some about whichever one you want to do first, either the podcast or your professorship and
Sure.
all of that?
Sure. Well, one kind of, so I I started teaching this class called Harry Potter and the Politics of Social Identity at George Washington University because I was listening to the books. Shout out Jim Dale, and I was like thinking about a moment, and I thought, oh, I could actually teach a class on this. And then I got into a couple of Twitter debates as well, and I was like, oh, people are really into this. So I designed the course, and whenever I told people about the course, I would say, hey, I'm teaching this class, and people would be like, oh, I wish I could take that. So initially I started posting little snippets, like a minute and a half snippets on TikTok, because I was like, well, it'll be nice for, the random millennial person to just kind of see what I'm up to. It's mostly for me and my friends. And then it kind of turned into a whole thing. And then it blew up on social media, and then people were like, we want to take your class. And because I was trying to avoid a lawsuit, I was like, well, I can't teach the class. So for you. So the people were like, we want you to do a podcast. So then I started making the podcast and Critical Magic Theory. And the title came from a post that I made online where someone commented and was like, don't you see what he's doing? This is just critical race theory with magic. And I was like, well, that's a great title.
Thank you for my title.
Thank you so much, troll person. And so I decided to put the podcast together. But there are so many amazing Harry Potter podcasts that do so many amazing things. And so I was trying to figure out what my angle could be. And so I used a lot of what I had noticed from social media about the things that resonated with people, which is much more on my character-based analyses. And so then I kind of made that the focal point of the podcast. And so we've been doing that it'll be 2 years. Next month, it'll be 2 years. And so, yeah, that's how Critical Magic Theory came to be.
So a question I have is, with your teaching this at a college, do you just get to say, hey, this is what I want to teach? Is there a process you have to go through in order to be able to teach it?
So it depends on the school you're at. So GW is a kind of place where, because we have, I think, the most majors, if not we are in the top 3 majors of the school. So we never have a problem with getting people to take our classes, which then means that we kind of have carte blanche in terms of what we get to teach.
Nice work.
And yeah. Oh, thanks. And so, yeah, I get to just kind of get to teach whatever I want without much fanfare or kind of getting it checked out. Now, that's not true for a lot of other places, but because of the nature of how it works at GW, that's how it works for me. And so that's how the class happened. I just was like, I want to teach this. And they said, okay, go for it.
Yeah, I was just slightly confused earlier because you said you weren't able to teach it because of a lawsuit. So you are currently teaching.
I couldn't. I'm teaching it, but no. I can teach it at GW, but I don't. I couldn't teach it outside. I couldn't teach the class for other people,
like an online course or something.
Exactly. Because the course, while technically is my intellectual property, it's taught at GW, and you're not. I think contractually, I'm not allowed to provide the same thing that I'm getting paid for at GW at another institution or in other platforms.
But you can podcast about it.
Exactly. And the podcast and the class are, I think, different enough that it works. And I'm currently behind on writing. I'm writing a book that is kind of based off of some of the lectures that I've given, some of the stuff that we talk about on the podcast. Yeah, my editor's probably pissed because I haven't sent him chapters in a while. But yeah, that's happening. So which is exciting. And so it kind of will kind of bring together all of these different brain children that I've had into one kind of written text.
That's so awesome. I remember when I was in undergrad, there was a professor who taught Tolkien for his subject. And I was like, I didn't know professors could do that. And then there was one day when I listened to MuggleCast pretty regularly, and I remember your first episode on with them. Yeah. And I think even before then, Andrew was advertising it or hyping it up in an episode or two before. And he was like, and we're going to have a professor. I think he played a clip, and I was like, that's dope. That is. Yeah. So you're living the dream of I don't know if you feel like that, but me listening and seeing these things, that is so cool that this is your profession that you get to do. Yeah. And you have an absolutely wonderful podcast, which, speaking of, I have some questions or some things I wanted to highlight about it.
Let's get into it.
First of all, I wanted to highlight the fact that I heard 2 brand new nicknames for Voldemort and Dumbledore that I had never heard. You called them Voldy V and Dumby D. I liked that. One question I had was, what is I think I know, but just to clarify, a beard bop. Is that is that what you call your theme song?
Yeah, we just joke about bop along to the theme song is kind of what I say. And so now we have different bops for different characters. And so for Snape, it was the bob bop because his hair was and so you can kind of do this. And then the beard bop because Dumbledore has this long beard. It's kind of, it's the same gesture. It's just the kind of like how you, exactly. You're doing it.
Yeah.
So it's just, just a joke that I like to throw in.
Yeah, listeners, on it, if you listen to his podcast, for the theme song, at least that's how I'm interpreting it. That's what plays, and I love it each time you come back from it and you go, I hope you guys enjoyed it, because what's the point of doing the dance if you didn't even enjoy it?
I hope you dance. Like, it's just, that's a lot of fun, and I love to do the bop, and I loved that we got to, and so I think Snape was the first particular where I rechristened the bop based on the character, and then it just so happened that it came after Dumbledore as well, that we got to do the bob bop for Snape and the beard bop for Dumbledore.
Very good. And listeners, another really cool thing about his podcast is, yes, we were talking about this just before, he responds to his listeners, they have conversations, but it is just him on the show, and it is a special talent to be somebody who, I hate when it's just me talking. Can't stand it. I have to have somebody going back and forth. I tried it one time, listeners. I made you a full episode, and every 5 minutes I went, this isn't good. And I was running out of energy. I didn't have that energy. But his show, he keeps that energy up. It's so good. I wanted to comment, and I told you this earlier, but is it called Professor Responds? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
In your Professor Responds episodes, which, it's like the part 2 of every episode, he will answer back or questions or comments from his listeners. And I remember one time you said, with the Dumbledore one, you said, I didn't think that Dumbledore was that emotionally appealing or significant to people. But man, was I wrong. And you said there were 700 comments that you had to read through.
Yeah, that was, and some of it was, and the first episode on a character, especially because I think Dumbledore and Snape were the first ones where we did longer episodes, or longer, multiple episodes across, because I did longer episodes for both Ron and for Draco Malfoy, but I wasn't doing Prof Responds then. And so they each got 2 episodes, and that was that. But the Dumbledore and Snape episodes are just so much more protracted and kind of,
I think they're
we
4
really
each.
get into the, yeah. And so the first one for Snape was long, but the first one for Dumbledore was very long. And I think part of it is because the first question that I always ask of any character that we discuss is, are they a good person? And I think there are a lot of people who had a lot to say about that. And I think Dumbledore is one of those characters that we as a fandom, there's a massive difference between how many of us experienced him as children, for those of us who read it when we were younger, and how we experience him now as adults. And so I think even more so than Snape, a lot of people had a lot of feelings that kind of span the gulf of relatability that we had to him.
Yeah. I think before we move on, listeners, last thing I wanted to say, the vibe that I try to go for all the time on this one is just lighthearted and fun. And when we get to certain moments where Dumbledore is a bit suspect, to put it kindly, because in my head I go, children's book, let's enjoy it, and we laugh it off and we move on. But listeners, if you are interested, if you are interested in a more critical look, in a more deep analytical deep dive of it, please check out Julian's podcast. It's called Critical Magic Theory, and I love the subbar or subline, an analytical Harry Potter podcast. And it truly is, listeners. Check it out over there.
We have a good time. We get critical, but we also have a good time. So it's
Yeah.
not, we try to make sure that we maintain a little bit of levity, mostly because I'm just such a goofball.
And that's your
so
opening line every episode, you know, is
Oh, yeah.
we criticize
something.
just because we love it doesn't mean we can't criticize.
Yeah.
So
And so we have a good time.
very good. So now, listeners, we will be moving on to our Quizzitch section. And this is the part of the show where I have a running competition with my guests, where it is me representing myself versus my guests who represent the world, because I always selfishly and pridefully claim I know more about Harry Potter than everybody else in the world. And this is how I prove it. In book 1, I won the competition. Book 2 and 3, I lost. Good news, book 4 is my favorite. At the moment, I'm ahead by half a point. The score is 3.5 to 3. We always ask each other 2 questions based on the chapters to see who knows more about Harry Potter. So, Julian, you have a big responsibility. You're representing the world right now.
Feeling the weight of this thing right now.
That's right. And so I'll have you ask first, and then we'll bounce back and forth, and we'll each ask each other our 2 questions. So take it away, Julian.
Well, now, if I had known this, I should have made it harder.
I made it very hard for you because I knew you were a professor who taught Harry Potter.
Wow. Okay,
My
now
last
this is...
episode, I made it very easy because I didn't know what to expect. But I was like, this is a Potter podcaster and a professor. He needs the good stuff.
Wow. Okay. All right. So then you're going to win, and it's very possible that I'm going to lose because
what a shame.
This is listeners, are you hearing this? Are you hearing what's transpired? Okay, so the first question that I have for you is what object serves as the port key, and why, and more importantly than that, why was it chosen? So this is the two-barreled question.
Yeah, I feel like maybe in your head you just added that second part to make it a little harder.
No, it's actually I have
fine.
it. But I'm glad that it's there now, knowing what I know.
You know, so this is funny because you said, I wish I had made these questions harder. And it would have really made me look stupid if I got the easy questions wrong after you said, like, wow, these are going to be so easy. And then I get them wrong. But fortunately, listeners, I do know the answer. It was a boot. And the reason it is just as they say in the movie, a mangy old boot. Or manky, one of the two.
I think it's manky.
Yeah, manky, whatever that means, is because it is just as Arthur says, it looks like a piece of litter to muggles that they wouldn't pick up and touch themselves, so they wouldn't be accidentally teleported somewhere else.
That's it. That's it. That's
Yay!
the one. You did it. You made it.
All right, so here's your hard question.
All right.
What is Ludo Bagman's brother's name? I'm so sorry, Julian. I'm so sorry.
That's so disrespectful. This is... Listeners, are you hearing this? This is absurdity.
Oh.
Ludo Bagman's brother?
Don't worry. I even have a bonus question in case you get both wrong, and I can ask you a make-up
Which
one.
clearly I'm going to do because I haven't even... I have no idea.
Listeners, the answer to the question is Otto Bagman.
Yeah, I
feel terrible after that. Didn't feel good, Julian. That didn't feel good. Don't worry.
I don't believe you, and that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. You know, and it's always good to be humbled. You know, right? I think, yeah, it's always good to be humbled. It's always nice to feel like, you know, to feel like, okay, there's still some work to be done.
Right. I have a reoccurring guest on my podcast who she will ask me anytime there is a timestamp in a chapter, if something says this took place at 7:00 or this took place on this date or or any number, this was 4 feet long, this was the 7th window on the 13th floor. Like, I know she's going to ask me those questions. I make a note of all that kind of stuff. But Julian, your next question.
Okay. What is the name of the person who is being scolded for wearing inappropriate Muggle attire? You get the context.
Yes. The person who is being scolded. Okay, let me think. This is in the next chapter. So
Yeah, this is in chapter 6.
yeah. No, that's in chapter 7.
Is it?
Yeah, that's chapter 7 because it hasn't
Oh,
happened
shoot.
yet. No, it's okay.
I think
It's okay. I'm trying
I
to
was
remember.
listening. I listened through multiple chapters, and so I might have gotten that confused. Okay.
That's all right.
Right, because that is the Mr. Crouch and Bagman, the Ludo Bagman chapter. This is Bagman and Crouch is the name of the chapter. Shoot.
That's all right. I get it wrong. What is the correct answer?
Archie.
Archie. He likes a breeze, which is
Yes,
why,
that is true.
why he's
Yeah.
dressed the way he is.
Good for him. Listen,
Very good. Very good. So now your next question, Julian. Here we
Yeah.
go.
I'm done.
Let's see. I'm going to pick the easier of the two, at least in my head. Actually, no, I'm cutting that out. That way, in case you get it wrong, it won't sound like I'm belittling you. Who was the last person to make it up the hill as they were hiking?
Oh,
Says they were clutching the stitch in their side.
Hermione.
That is correct. Ding, ding,
Yes.
ding, ding, ding. Good
I
job,
was
Julian.
like, yeah, now that one, okay. That makes me feel better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, just for funsies, here are some bonus questions. So
Yeah.
you don't get points for these since you did get one correct, but
That's okay.
these are just for funsies. Who did England lose to in the World Cup?
Oh, because they're complaining about it. And
Yeah, they're having their little
can't-
sports ball talk.
Yeah, and I can't remember because it's not.
Think Dracula.
Oh, is it Romania?
Close. Transylvania.
Transylvania. I was thinking Latvia. Like I was in the right region.
That's right. That's right. The other question
okay.
was, why did Charlie fail the apparition test the first time?
Didn't he end up like way off and like land on like somebody, like some old lady?
Yeah, that's correct. He ended
Yeah.
up 5 miles away from his
5 miles away.
destination, and he
Yeah.
landed on top of some poor woman who was doing her shopping.
Yes.
There you
yes, I
go,
remember
people. That is the professor at work. All right.
Listen.
I hope you enjoyed our Quizzitch section. Listeners, time for your question. So last week, we asked you, what do the Dursleys have for lunch on the day that the Weasleys pick Harry up? And the answer to that was, I have it right here, cottage cheese and celery. And it's because Dudley's on his diet.
Poor Dudley.
Poor Dudders. Poor Ickle Duddykins.
Poor Ickle Duddykins.
Listeners, I hope you got that right. If you didn't, better luck next time. Next time being right now. Your question for this week is, what does the gnome that Crookshanks is chasing jump into to hide in this in chapter 5? When the gnome is running away from Crookshanks in the garden, he jumps into something to hide. What is the thing he jumps into? If you want to answer that question, you can write into theretoldpodcast@gmail.com or message me on Instagram at theretoldpodcast. And with that, that wraps up our Quizzitch section. We will now be moving on to our chapter coverages. Julian, are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So listeners, this is the part of the show where I recap what happens in the chapter, hopefully in a fun and entertaining way. Julian is free to interrupt me as he sees fit. If he does so, he is not being rude. He's doing what I asked him to do. And he is also free to not say anything. All right. So you can ramble on as much as you want, or as much as you want me to, you know what I'm saying. Anyway, chapter 5, Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, which I got to say right off the bat, odd title for this particular chapter, given like what takes place later in this series. I feel like it was a bit of a pulled the trigger too early on that title.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anyway, Harry spins around and shoots out of the fireplace at the burrow. Fred helps him up and was like, hey, that was pretty sick, wasn't it? And everybody has a big old laugh at the expense of Duddy. Harry looks into the kitchen and he sees Ron and George, but 2 new Weasleys have appeared, and Harry can tell that they are Charlie and Bill. And we get some pretty cool descriptions of these 2 individuals. Like a lot of work went into talking about these 2, and I love their descriptions. Make a long story short, listeners, Charlie, he says he looks a little bit more like Fred and George, short, stocky, but incredibly jacked, has like burn marks on his arms. It's funny to me because I remember what long time ago I was listening to the Potterless podcast, and the host of that show said, he comments how JK says that Bill looks like the cool one. And he's like, but I think Charlie looks a lot cooler. And again, subjective, but Charlie's looking pretty beefed up and pretty intense. So we get to see Charlie, but then we also get to meet Bill. And Harry has a bit of a man crush on Bill, it seems, because, you know, he's saying how he thought Bill was a bit, he was going to be more like Percy, more a bit nerdy, and maybe aloof. But I love it. It says there was no other word for it. Bill was cool. Yeah, and by cool, we mean he has an earring. He's got a ponytail. He's got dragon hide boots, which I'm sure Charlie is not happy about, but he's got them. And I loved it. I think one of the things I found interesting about it was that, you know, it subverts Harry's expectations a lot whenever he finally meets Bill. And the interesting thing to me is, I guess, Harry has only ever seen, I guess, academically successful people look one way. And he has that vision in his head to be like a Percy or a Hermione or maybe a McGonagall. But then he meets who Bill is, and he goes, oh, I guess academically successful people can look like many things. Because Bill was head boy as well, listeners, if you forgot about that. But I liked that interaction where he gets to meet them for the first time.
Yeah, and I also love it because he's learned so much about them, like all of these things from Ron, but also from all the other Weasleys who talk about them all the time. And so it's actually a really cool moment that they get to meet one another. And because he can't, oh no, that's later on in the book. And so I think that there's, no, because he knows of Charlie more than Bill because they had to give the dragon back.
Yeah,
they
he's met Charlie's friends.
Friends, right? To know, so he like knows of some of the work that they do, and then they also know he knows a little bit of Bill because of the Weasleys going on their trip to Egypt and kind of and so that there's a way that, you know, it's really, this is a moment of putting faces to names because he's heard so much about them. But I do love the idea that like this is also a moment for him to realize that everyone who does well at Hogwarts doesn't have to be as uptight. And what we also see throughout many different moments in these chapters is that, you know, Bill and Charlie are very, very, very much not like Percy at all. And in fact, kind of join in the, you know, making fun of Percy bandwagon that Fred and George are leading. Yeah,
it's also just and these early chapters too, and this whole book, but expanding the world that much more for Harry.
Yeah,
I mean, listeners,
exactly.
It's the thickest book we got to this point, so it was a matter of time. Anyway, Papa Weasley shows up, and he is none too pleased. He's like, the heck was that about, boys? Fred and George said, we were just bullying the bully, and Arthur in his head is probably thinking, that's not how that works. Next, I love the Molly bit. I love this so much, where Arthur, he says, just you wait till I tell your mother. And when Molly shows up and she's like, tell me what? He was not intending to tell them at all. Harry even makes the note of that. Like, no matter how angry Arthur was, it seemed like he was not actually intending on pulling that card. And Arthur's like, boys, I didn't mean that. I didn't want that to happen to you.
Although he should have told her, because what Fred and George did, this is a hot take. But what they did to Dudley in the previous chapter was really messed up.
Yeah, because I think
it was messed up.
Even just so obviously, you know, we're big proponents of, you know, hate doesn't drive out hate. Love does that. But also, let's say you are still trying to win against Dudley. Like let's say you're in a competition or you're framing it like that. You are basically throwing a pot shot and leaving. You're making things worse for Harry when he comes back. This is not a thing that will help Harry. This is something that will make it much worse for him when he returns and make the Dursleys' impression of them much worse as well. So,
not to mention the fact that this is just another instance of magical people like pushing magic on these people that in ways that they don't want. Like every year something crazy happens to them. And it's like, you all wonder why they're afraid of magic. But poor Dudley has been like, got a tail put on him in the first book. And now he's had his tongue go. And it's like, listen, I want to be very clear, listeners. I'm not a defender of the Dursleys. I'm not a Dursley
Nope.
defender. But I will say that there is something to be said about their relationship with magic and the chaos and absurdity that it brings to their home. And it is not lost on me that some of the rancor that they have for magic is not simply just because of like unwarranted prejudice. Like over and over and over again, including just Dumbledore leaving Harry at their house, there are all of these moments where we see the Dursleys really having to deal with stuff that they don't want to deal with, and they don't really get to have a say in it. And so this is just another example of that. And I don't necessarily buy the whole, like, it's not because he's a muggle, because I don't think they would have pulled this. I don't think they would have done it if the person could have done magic back against them. But it is just not lost on me where some of the angst and anxiety of the Dursleys comes from. And I think that Fred and George perpetuate that by doing this tongue toffee thing.
Yeah, I think it's the only, like, and again, this is, you know, through the lens of a child, I guess, the only like reasonable take on it for a child to have in support of what Fred and George did, I would say would be, well, if you're going to call me something, I might as well be it. You know, that child attitude. Which
Yeah.
Not a fan of, but it gives a bit of a reason. But I agree with you in that, yes, the Dursleys have plenty of unwarranted prejudice, but there's also these moments that don't help. They don't help Harry's case.
Yeah.
So moving on, though. So Molly wants to know what's up, and I don't think she trusts Arthur to discipline because, you know, he even says, I took care of it. Don't even worry about it. She goes, no, I'm going to worry about it. You clearly didn't do enough.
Yeah.
And so things start to heat up, and Hermione has to be like, Ron, let's go. I really enjoyed that moment, too, because she says,
love that
hey,
moment.
let's go check out upstairs. And Ron goes,
He knows where
Harry's
he's
already
staying.
Yeah, he's seen it before. No, Ron, let's go.
Let's go, yeah.
They head on up there. So the trio and Ginny start walking up the stairs. They talk some about Weasley's Wizard Wheezes, all the jokes and gizmos and gadgets that Fred and George have been cooking up. And I like Ginny's explosion line when she's talking about what's going on in their room, because she says, we always heard explosions in their room. We didn't know they were making stuff. We just thought they liked the noise. And
which
that's
feels
funny.
fair.
Yeah. So they come across Percy, who is hard at work. All right. He's working hard on those cauldron thickness. The bottoms of them cauldrons need to be thick enough. Okay. Amen to that. And he's having to struggle through all this ruckus that's being made in this house while he needs to write his report. Anyway, Ron's like, forget you. I'm out of you.
Ron has my favorite quote from this chapter, though, when he's like, that'll change the world, that report. I just think that it's so funny because Percy takes himself so seriously, and it's just really hilarious. He's like, yeah, that's going to be the thing that saves us. That's it. You know, that's the one.
It's really funny. In my head, like when I was younger, I'm listening to this and I laugh along, and I laughed this time too. But now as I go through, I start to think because you're podcasting through it, you need to consider a little more, hopefully have something interesting to say, and you think a little more about it. And I go, you know, I wonder how helpful I bet that was actually helpful for some people, you know? Maybe when I think of international commerce and stuff, maybe it did do something. You know, it's these...
I mean, you know, if cauldrons are leaking...
If they're leaking, that's a problem. And we hear, I think of Gandalf's line where he says, it's the little acts of kindness every day that drive back evil. Well, with that attitude, listeners, it's the little things of technology and products working correctly that make people happier and lead to a better society.
It's also safer. Like you don't want cauldrons that are going to leak if you've got some crazy potion that shouldn't, you know, I mean, potions are dangerous. So you really, I mean, it is important. And I think it's one of those things where Percy is probably hyping it up more than he should, just by virtue of
he's just being
who
rude.
He is. And also, I think Percy's a person who needs to find meaning in the things that he does. And so he needs it to feel as important in order to kind of motivate him to do things. Because this is before he gets his like big promotion and like all these things. And so right now it just feels like busy work. But like, I think for Percy, this is like the most important thing that he's going to be doing for a while. So he's like really locked in on it.
Mm-hmm. Man, this is going to be so funny. I'm going to get all these comments of how we are pro Dursley, pro Percy over on.
Well, okay. Unfortunately, I have to say I'm not pro Dursley, but I am pro Percy.
I think more, at least more so than the Dursleys.
Oh, 1000%. But I think that there's a way that Percy is both misunderstood and very, very, very understood. But I
To
think
me,
that
Percy just doesn't have a secure identity, you know, and he's
I
constantly.
think Percy is the person who like did everything that his parents wanted him to do, and
it didn't
took
make
a
him
lot
happy.
and took a lot of meaning in doing it, and then he couldn't figure out how to be his own person when the time for him to have an identity separate from the expectations of others arose. And so he ended up making some really bad decisions that were not great. But I don't think he had the tools, because I feel like if you are taught, you know, your whole job is to do well in school, get OWLs, get a good job at the ministry. Like he's like, I did all of that, but everything about him is that.
Yeah.
And so how do we square that with and so then the moment comes later on where in the next book, and then it's different, right? Then different things happen. And so there's a way that, like, I think some of his journey is something I think a lot of us go through, which is, you know, meeting the expectations of the people who have raised us, and then sometimes coming up against a moment where it's like, oh, that actually doesn't fulfill me in any way.
Yeah. Realizing who you are outside of your initial course direction. You know?
Exactly.
So they keep going up the stairs and they make it to Ron's room, and they're greeted by the lovely little pig, aka Pigwidgeon. And I love this section so much because there's so many it's a short little passage, but these are some of the paragraphs I love the most in Harry Potter. When Pigwidgeon's flying around the room, Ron is trash talking Pig, but Ginny's all like, oh, but I love him and he's so cute. And Ron says, and it was too late to change his name. Ginny already started calling him that, and he doesn't answer to anything else, like a duck who sees its mama at first. And then I also like Harry's inner monologue of saying, you know, and Harry wasn't convinced that Ron actually did hate Pigwidgeon, because he said some trash about Scabbers, but whenever he thought Scabbers was dead, he was pretty upset about it. So I like Harry being a good enough friend and knowing Ron enough to be like, he's talking this, but I think he really likes that little guy.
Yeah.
So, and that's just adorable. The other thing I wrote down in this part was they really didn't need to walk up the stairs, because right away Hermione goes, so let's go back down. They say they talk about like two things. So either those stairs are really long or a lot of dialogue was left out. They head back on down. Molly is hard at work in the kitchen, and she's all up in a tizzy. She messes up some potatoes. She grabs the wrong wand. And Harry and Ron are like, let's get outside. We got our fun little Crookshank sighting, which I'm not going to say happens because that's your question, listeners. All right, you got to write in about that. Bill and Charlie are playing bumper tables, quite literally making the tables float up in the air.
Clash.
I pictured Beyblades, if you remember, if you ever saw those, Julian. Those tables just hitting each other. I also thought, I don't know if that's a good idea, because the Weasleys are, you know, not the most financially stable, and here they are messing up I know they can fix it easily, but I also feel like maybe it just didn't feel right. You know? Yeah. So Bill and Charlie, they're playing that. Finally, it's dinner time, and Harry is psyched. I love his little line of, it said he didn't even bother joining in the conversation at first because he was so starved from the Dursleys this summer. He just wanted to eat.
Listen, Harry's in here eating stale cake. Like that's been his meal for weeks.
And happy about it.
And happy. Like that tells a story about what he's been enduring. And so, and this is already coming from someone who on any given day, even when Dudley wasn't on a diet, was still being underfed. And so, I wouldn't talk to anyone either.
I liked one thing we noticed in the last chapter that's not explicitly stated is that Harry ends up eating 2 whole cakes in a day. because he has 2 left under the floorboard, and the
Yeah.
Weasleys say they're going to come get him, and it says the next day the floorboard was empty, and I was like, dang, he tanked
'em
those
back.
takes.
Yeah, he
those
said
cakes.
those gotta go.
So Percy is up at the head of the table chatting with his pop and about his super important work. And by that, I mean he's gossiping. You know, we hear about Ludo and his brother, who, Julian?
Otto.
Julian and Otto. I love Mr. Weasley's reaction, you know, because Percy starts to just trash talk Bagman. And
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Weasley goes, I like Bagman. And he's all right guy. He gave us our tickets.
He gave us the tickets.
Percy mentions Bertha Jorkins, and they say Bertha like 5 times in this section. And so when I wrote in my notes, Percy says Bertha Jorkins, says that she's still missing, and that's when he looks at the camera and says, remember Bertha, readers? The girl who Voldemort said he killed in chapter 1? And we were all like, oh yeah, don't think she's coming back.
Bertha,
poor Bertha.
I just thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers. Yeah, I don't think this is the first book that I remember reading entirely, because I read 1 through 3, but I don't have much of a memory, just slight memories of 3. But I remember reading all of this book the first time I read it, and that totally right over my head when they said Bertha again. I'd completely, because in that chapter 1, so many other cool things are happening. When they say Bertha, I was like, that's just a name. There's so many fun wizardy names that they throw out there. What does it mean? But yeah. So Percy is, I wrote Percy is me with secrets almost, because he's over at the table and he's like, also, we have this super important thing that we're doing. Guys,
Wink,
we have
wink.
this super important thing.
Why is no one paying attention to the super important thing that we have that you won't tell us, that I don't want to tell you about, but I want you to ask?
Yeah, so the big difference between me and Percy, like, and Ron even makes clear, he just wants us to ask about it. And like you said, he still won't tell the answer. He just wants to be asked. The difference between me and Percy, listeners, is you can't trust me with a secret. I'm going to blab about it, because I'm just going to say, I think of in the TV show Friends, there's a line where Chandler goes, I tell people secrets, it makes them like me. And that's how I would have had them tease it out, and then eventually I'd have been like, all right, fine, I'll tell you, right when they gave up, you know?
Listen.
That would have been me. Anyway, so they got some sports ball. Oh, I skipped over Mrs. Weasley. She wants to cut Bill's hair down at the end of the table.
Yeah.
It's a very odd section, but Bill's like, it's okay. He says this one line that felt so real world to me, of like, they don't care how I dress as long as I bring home treasure. He's just like, I just got to get results, Mom. They don't care.
And that's it.
That's it. Ginny's a big fan of the haircut, though. We move on to the other end of the table with some sports ball talk. All the Fred and George and Ron are talking about, and Charlie, the Quidditch teams. My next note was, I wrote down vibes. Just vibes. So I'm going to read this paragraph right here. I loved this so much. Mr. Weasley conjured up candles to light the darkening garden before they had their homemade strawberry ice cream. And by the time they had finished, moths were fluttering low over the table, and the warm air was perfumed with the smell of grass and honeysuckle. Harry was feeling extremely well fed and at peace with the world as he watched several gnomes sprinting through the rose bushes, laughing madly and closely pursued by Crookshanks. That's awesome. That's the kind of thing I YouTube as background stuff, you know, Hogwarts Legacy walkthrough or something. That's the vibe I go for. I love that moment so much. But then, and I also appreciate this, something I've noticed a lot, Julian, and I'll want to say it to you as well, because of what you do for a living. One of the things I've noticed so much on this read through is how sometimes he's conveniently not, but typically Harry seems to me to be described as very self-aware and considerate. Even in moments when he probably shouldn't be, because he's a child who needs to be helped. But there's one moment where he's about to tell Ron about his scar hurting in the dream, and he thinks, but you know what? Everybody's having a good time right now. I probably shouldn't say anything. It is very considerate, a mature thought, I feel, for a 14-year-old to have.
I also think that it's punctuated by the reality of him not actually wanting to tell Ron. I think he's
He's
a
like
little bit
justifying
nervous.
his reasons.
Yeah, I think he's trying to justify the idea of it because we'll remember in the earlier chapter he kind of played through what everyone's reaction was going to be, but he was also like worried about people thinking him weak if he talked about the scar too much. And so
Which was
I think
a big
that,
struggle he had last year with the Dementors. He's like,
exactly.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I do think that he is considerate, and I do think that he's like, I don't want to bring the vibe down, but I also do think that some of this is like underneath it all is this idea of not wanting people to see him as like unable to handle things.
Yeah, I like that take. I like that, especially because even in book 1, he's worried about the hat says you have a thirst to prove yourself. You know, all this has been thrust upon you, and you feel like you don't fit in here, and you want to show people that you do, that you can handle Hogwarts. So yeah, that's a really interesting take. Thank you for sharing that, Julian.
Yeah.
But moving on now, the last note of the chapter is Molly sends them all off to bed. And I wrote, and that's the end of the chapter. So yay, we finished up.
We did it.
Chapter 5. Moving on now to our favorite lines of the chapter. So I have 3 or 4 here. And we can, how many do you have, Julian?
I have like 2 or 3.
Cool. So we can bounce back and forth. I'll say mine first, and then kick it to you for your next one. Let's see. My first one that I have here is Mr. Weasley hesitated. Harry could tell that, however angry he was with Fred and George, he hadn't really intended to tell Mrs. Weasley what had happened. I love that. That to me was just really funny of, like, I messed up, didn't want to do that. And it's just good writing there. I enjoyed that. So that's my first favorite line. What about you, Julian?
Yeah, I love that moment, but and honestly, it's a very simple line. I just love when Molly comes in and is like, "Tell me what," because it feels like a sitcom, right? Like it feels like a moment in a sitcom where like you're like, "Oh, I wasn't gonna say anything." Oh, it's one of those moments of like they're standing right behind me, aren't they? Like it's one of those like a very like quintessential like Disney Channel TV movies, and I love that moment because. I just love that, to your point, like Arthur is like, he tries to be a disciplinarian, but he's so bad at it. And I always joke to me that Arthur is like a parent, Peerent. Like he's much more like the boys' friends than he is like their dad. And there's the show Modern Family. That's what Phil Dunphy calls himself. And I think that Arthur is definitely very much in the vein of like that kind of dad who's much more laid back and fun. And so I love this moment of Molly just kind of like seemingly apparating in from nowhere and being like, "Tell me what?" And he's
listening.
just like, everyone like jumps kind of like, "Oh, whoa, we weren't expecting you to be here." And I love that. I love that moment.
Yeah. So what's your favorite line, or one of them?
One of my favorite lines is the one from Ron. That changed the world, that report will.
Yes.
I just love that moment because I think it is so it's so good for so many reasons. And I think it just like puts into perspective what like the difference in like self-reflection of Harry or of Ron and Percy, because Ron's just like, dude, just be for real for a second. And also, even if all of this is true, like you treating us like this is so unnecessary. But I love the way that Ron seeks to humble Percy relative to the way that other like Fred and George seek to humble him. I think it's really good. And I also think it's like such a tight family dynamic of people.
Yeah.
No one will keep you more humble than your family.
That's what I was going to say is for me, it screamed definitely something that a brother would say,
Yes, absolutely.
One of my day job is that I'm a pastor, and
oh, nice.
One of the things,
what denomination?
I'm at a Presbyterian church.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I say that I have several different theological takes. I grew up Baptist, and I have many Baptist beliefs, but I will say, as far as church organization, I feel like Presbyterian government, way to go, love that. But anyway, the thing I was going to say was that what you just said made me think of when I was growing up and I was seeking to get my first job as a pastor. My dad would often tell me there's a verse in the New Testament where Jesus says, "Only in his hometown is a prophet without honor." And what that's sort of meant to teach is that, certain people shouldn't be your pastor, and at least that's kind of what I get out of it, even if they are a really good pastor, in that, like, you've kind of seen this person go through everything, and Jesus's brothers and sisters and parents were kind of like iffy on him being the Messiah and a little bit doubtful. And it was sort of like, yeah, they saw him grow up. They're not going to, like, that's our neighbor. Some of the people said he's the carpenter's son. And so, to your point of even your family will keep you the most humble, it seems, out of everybody. And as well they should. That's what they're there for.
Yeah. I love that moment. And I love it because I think, Percy doesn't take it the way that I think he probably should, but I think it's just a moment of someone else kind of holding you a little bit to account as well. And just kind of being like, dude, relax. Like, it is cauldrons, and that they are important, but also, like, just have a little bit of perspective on what you're bringing to the table, what you're bringing here.
Being able to laugh at yourself and not take yourself too seriously is something
Exactly.
we strive for over here at the Retold Podcast, everybody.
Same.
So my other favorite line, it is, let me get to it. It was during the table fight. I loved this so much. Fred and George were cheering. Ginny was laughing, and Hermione was hovering near the hedge, apparently torn between amusement and anxiety. And I like that a lot because I related to Hermione a lot in that moment of, maybe you're at a friend's house and they're doing something fun. It's their house. They can do whatever they want with the furniture, I kind of think in my head. But also, I don't want to be here if it breaks and for your parents to yell at us. So it was a very relatable situation, I thought, when that was written. So do you have another favorite line, Julian?
I do, and I was listening to them. I don't have the books on me, but it was something along the lines of like Harry felt as though he were back where he belonged.
Was it the one I said of like he felt at peace with the world?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that moment because this is the first book, I think, where we get to experience Harry as fully feeling part of the magical world. I think we see it in earlier chapters when the Weasleys are writing to him and saying, send it back our way, and
our way.
Exactly. And so there's in every other book thus far, I think there's, especially the second and the third, there are all these kind of weird moments of like, do I belong here? Is this my space? How do I understand, myself as a magical person? Do I have a place that I actually belong? And I think in this book, and it's something I talk about with my students a lot, we really do see the formation of his identity as a magical person really solidify. And so it's like once he gets to leave the Dursleys, he gets to go back into a space that feels very much like his own. And there is a peace that comes along with that. And I love that moment because I do think that, once Harry, I think, having Sirius be kind of knowing he has a godfather who's there, who he can write to, I think helps really it plants him there and makes him feel like he has family in this space. And I just love this moment. And I think the Weasleys coming and like rescuing him for the second time in his life in the 4 years since he's known him, I think it's also just like it's a beautiful thing. And I love that moment for him.
Yeah. And I think something I thought about as you said all that was, to me, the Weasleys seem to really embody how great both regular family and found family are.
Absolutely.
Because I hear a whole lot of, like, I am somebody, and I understand, I recognize how privileged and gifted I am with this, but I have a wonderful family. I have a wonderful parents that love each other and siblings that they get along, and I'm treated very well. And so I'll listen to some people who unfortunately do not have that experience, and they'll rip their families apart in their verbiage and their conversations, and they'll talk about how they only care about found family. But I'm somebody who I have both. You know, I have my wonderful home family, and I have an absolutely incredible found family. And I love that in this moment with the Weasleys, we get to see that both of those being embodied, a wonderful family that's put together that you want to be a part of, but also Harry, who is an outsider, being welcomed in and with his people. I like that take on it as well.
Yeah, I just love that moment. And then another quote. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. It's not my turn.
No, it's fine. You can do whatever you want. You're the guest.
No.
All right.
I also love it. Something else you brought up when it says Harry recognized his boots, his being Bill's boots, to be made not of leather, but of dragon hide. And I was like, okay, fashionista Harry. Way to go. Way to be able to clock that. That's,
he's
attuned. He's very aware. And I love that.
My last favorite line, and it's more so just a funny joke rather than a favorite line, listeners, but it's at the very end of the chapter. Percy says he's got to go inside, and he's hoping that the match won't last 5 days like the previous World Cup. And Fred says, yeah, someone might slip dragon dung in your office at work. Hey, Percy. And Percy says, that was a sample of fertilizer from Norway. It was nothing personal. And I love this. Fred whispers to Harry, it was. We sent it. Again, we don't support bullying, but that is a funny joke. That is a funny moment of him just being like, no. It was personal. For a fact know that it was, because it was personal to me.
I love that Percy's like, it was just a dung sample, like nothing crazy, just a fertilizer sample. Just every day, this is what I get in my office.
This is what I do. I'm a lot like Charlie. I'm working with the dragon stuff.
Right.
So now we're going to move on to our transfiguration section. And these are differences that the movies made from the books. Unfortunately, listeners, this whole chapter was omitted from the movies.
Yeah.
So I guess some more permanent things, though, to highlight perhaps is there's no Bill and Charlie in this movie at all. They're not even like, so even though we don't, not only do we not get them in this kind of moment in the movie when Harry's at the Burrow, we don't see them at all. I even think, I can't remember if we see Percy or not. I think he might be in the stands. I think he's in the stands, I think, for one of the competitions.
Yeah, he's in the stands.
Because he's like a reporter on it. But that's about it. And then there's, so no fun dinner scene. And there's also, in this whole movie, no mention of Weasley's wizard wheezes. So those are some of the big ones. We got more direct transfigurations in the next chapter, but the good news is, listeners, we have tons of golden snitches for this chapter. So golden snitches are little lore drops, behind the scenes tids and bits, stuff like, who's that wizard on the chocolate frog card and things like that. So the first one I have for this chapter is Tun Tung Toffee. That was mentioned earlier. Fred explains what it is. The Tun Tung Toffee was a rainbow-colored magical sweet invented by Fred and George Weasley. I didn't know it was rainbow-colored. For Weasley's wizard wheezes, with the power of the engorgement charm, it made the tongue of the consumer swell to an indeterminate size, which could be at least 4 feet, as evidenced from this chapter. Some behind-the-scenes things that are kind of fun. Honeydukes at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter sells huge slabs of Tun Tung Toffee chocolate covered with nuts. But it is not rainbow-colored. It's just chocolate, which isn't as fun. And this one's also interesting. So in the Hogwarts Mystery Game, there's a scene set at Christmas of 1986 in Zonko's joke shop. And you can see in the background that they sell Tun Tung Toffee. But that wasn't invented yet, listeners. All right. This was 1986, but they didn't invent it until 1994. So anachronistic. Not okay.
Something's not right.
Something's not right. Moving on to our next golden snitch, we have dragon hide. So dragon hide or dragon leather was the skin of dragons, which was used to make protective clothing. Where muggles would wear leather, wizards and witches would wear dragon hide. The skin was very tough, impervious to a multitude of spells, and provided immense protection, while at the same time having the same texture and appearance as the skin of snakes. For this reason, dragonhide was used to make protective gloves, boots, jackets, belts, and shields, as it was very useful when handling corrosive, poisonous potion ingredients that damaged the skin. The hide of the Swedish short snout was notably popular in demand. And then something interesting I saw, I didn't know what it was talking about here, but maybe our listeners will. The gigantic serpent that guarded a hill in the enchanted garden where the Wizarding School's potion championship took place possessed the thick spell repellent hide of a dragon. So I don't know what the Wizarding School's potion championship is, but it sounds like a hoot and a half. Who knows?
Yeah.
And that's all we have for that one. Moving on to our next one, we've had our first mention of the Department of International Magical Cooperation. And so this department was a division of the British Ministry of Magic, which, as its name suggested, tried to get wizards from different countries to work together. The department functions similarly to the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office in the Muggle world. It was located on the 5th floor of the Ministry of Magic, and their duties included working with magical governments of other countries, setting standards for trade. They created regulations for things like cauldron thickness. Hey, we knew that. And interpret international magical law. The department also, spoiler stuff, not going to read that.
Don't do it.
It was established between 1798 and 1811 by Minister Artemisia Lufkin. So that's fun to say. And last one for this chapter, listeners. Department of Magical Games and Sports is mentioned as well, and it was a department in the British Ministry of Magic. It was charged with the regulation of all sport-related events in the wizarding world. It was founded by Gorgon Stump between 1811 and 1819. It was on the 7th floor of the British Ministry of Magic. The department had a very relaxed ambiance and various posters of Quidditch teams tacked lopsidedly on the walls. It was somewhat untidy looking in comparison with the other ministerial departments. The last thing to note about them that I thought was interesting was, they also have an official Gobstones club inside there. But the behind the scenes thing on the wiki says, there's the safety warning signs for the rides in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So if you go to Universal and you see the safety warning signs, those were in lore created by the Department for Magical Games and Sports. So yay! All right, that's it for Chapter 5. About to move on to Chapter 6. Julian, do you need to take a break?
No, let's go.
Let's keep it rolling then. All right, Chapter 6, The Port Key. This one's a good bit shorter, dear listeners. It's time to wake up. Molly wakes up all the boys. We got Harry, Ron, and the the Weasley twins sleeping on the floor of his room. They all got to get up because it's time to go to the game. I wrote down love Mr. Weasley. And it's when they get to the kitchen and he's standing there and he's like got his arms outstretched wearing his muggle attire. And he goes, we're supposed to go incognito.
I'm obsessed with this whole moment of him trying to figure out and what that means and him having Harry, again, fashionista Harry is on the job.
He's like,
coming
looks
in.
great.
Yeah. And it's like, is this good enough? Did I do that? Did I do it?
Did I do it? We have an apparition conversation, and they talk about how the older Weasley siblings don't have to wake up yet because they can just teleport on over to the Quidditch World Cup. We learn about splinching. Splinching is one of the most gruesome things I've ever heard of in my life. What's splinching, Barry? Well, listeners, I will tell you in the Golden Snitch section. We do learn that Charlie had to take his license test twice, and so we talked about that earlier. You have to, in order to apparate, you have to get a license to apparate. It's the equivalent of our driving license. And so I wanted to ask you, Julian, did you pass your driver's license test on the first try?
I did.
And the permit test?
I did.
Fantastic.
I was a stickler. I was like, I have to get this done. And I didn't. Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to be able to do both, to get both without having to do it again.
Very good. I am a twin, and my twin sister, when we were going to take the permit test, everybody joked around saying, because she was a better student than I was, talked about, Barry, wouldn't it be so funny? And she said this multiple times. Wouldn't it be so funny if I passed and you failed, Barry? Wouldn't it be so funny if I passed and you failed?
No.
I was determined not to let it happen. I studied that little driver's manual book so many times. We come out of the permit test. Mom goes, how'd y'all do? And I was like, I got it. My twin sister comes out, I failed. And so she actually failed, not me.
Just desserts.
Just desserts. And it was funny until she failed on the second try too. And then it was like, all right, we're not going to make jokes about this one. We'll let this one go.
My sister, who's 5 years younger than I am, it took her a number of times to pass the test.
An undisclosed number of times.
Yeah. A number of times that, it took her a while before she was able to get her license.
Yeah. And it's funny now because my twin sister, she is a doctor. She has her own, she's a clinical therapist or whatever the words are, but she has her own private practice. Her husband is also a doctor. And so like they're killing it now, but I will look back fondly on those days.
As you should.
So, but yeah, Charlie failed his the first time. At one point, Mrs. Weasley discovers the twins are hiding some goodies, and she uses the summoning charm to pull out all of the tongue-ton toffees from their pockets. I think of that scene when, if you remember, did you ever watch the Pirates of the Caribbean movies?
Yes.
You know, in the third movie, when they're in Singapore and before Elizabeth and Barbossa go into Captain I forget his name, but before they go into the hideout, she has to remove all her guns and weapons. And it just keeps removing guns over and over and over again. Kind of what this is like. Because I think they even had it like sewn into the lining of their
they
clothes
really
and
were
stuff.
trying to hide everything.
Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, things are not too cheery as they leave. Fred and George don't even get a goodbye kiss from their mama. They just march on out. Everybody else soon follows after them across the garden, out into the woods. And they've got a hike because Mr. Weasley said earlier, we're going for a bit of a walk. I like Harry picking up the convo. So the conversation, that was my note. What I mean by that is, listeners, before Molly goes crazy, Arthur is starting to talk about how everybody is going to get to the Quidditch World Cup. And that whole incident happens. And then Harry goes, okay, Arthur, we were talking about something. Do you mind finishing your thought? And I like that he remembered.
Yeah.
So Arthur tells him that, it's like a logistical nightmare getting all these people to the Quidditch World Cup. And we get to learn all about port keys. We learn that some people come in waves, some people teleport or apparate, and then port keys are established in order to get people from one place to another. And again, I'll talk about this more in the Golden Snitch section, but to suffice it to say, they are these dingy little objects placed around that will go off at a certain time, that if you're holding them, and they will take you to a new location. I did write down one problem with the transportation method for the World Cup that I had, was that as far as timing goes, they said that those with the worst tickets show up the earliest.
2 weeks.
Yeah, and it made me feel bad because I grew up in a time when if you wanted the best, you showed up earliest. You camping out at GameStop before it opened up, or for a concert before it opened up, and it's like the reverse.
And also it's kind of crazy because it's like, why do they need to do that? There's such a it felt like I'm like, to the extent that they need to show 2 weeks is you got to go to work.
Apparently not, Julian.
Apparently not for 2 weeks. You just get those are your vacation days. You camping outside of the venue, like that just feels crazy.
And you would think, like, if I'm just thought experimenting this in my head, those who do not need to be at work every day, it's probably because they might be able to afford it.
Right.
And so but in this case, it's those who get the cheapest tickets having to miss out on that much work. And that doesn't sound as efficient as you would think either. Anyway, they make it up the hill at the end of their hike. Poor Hermione, she got a little stitch in her thigh, can't make it up. She's not used to hiking, dear listeners. So she was last. But now they got to find the port key. They look around for it, but it has been found first by Amos Diggory and his strapping young lad, Cedric Diggory.
I love this scene. I love this moment.
I know. Arthur is like, oh, yeah, I know him. He was that guy from Twilight. Anyway, Cedric says hi to everyone, and everyone says hi back, except Fred and George, because they're still a bit salty about last year. And listeners, if you remember, Cedric is the captain of and the seeker for the Hufflepuff Quidditch team, and Hufflepuff beat Gryffindor. So they don't want to talk to him, really. They're not too enthused by this. But I have a little side note here. I wrote, I like Cedric, but his dad does not do him any favors. The conversation that follows is so uncomfortable. I hate this part. I hate it so much.
I think it's just so fascinating because it's like, it's such a weird, it's weird to me because obviously like Amos is so insanely proud of Cedric.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I do think though that like it's one of those moments where it's like, you know, your parents will brag about you, but then they'll just like embellish the truth to make everything. And it's like there are a lot of extraneous details that you've left out, like Dementors and all these other things. And it's just so fascinating because it's like, no, but you actually, like, it's great that you're proud of your kid, but also it is an uncomfortable moment, but it is one that I absolutely do love, mostly because I also think we just don't hear about Gryffindors losing that much. I don't know what your house is, Barry, but
it's Hufflepuff.
Okay. King. Okay. We love that.
The only team to beat Gryffindor multiple times.
And that counts for a lot. And so I do love the idea of the fact that they lost. I don't love the circumstances of the loss itself, but I do think it's important for them to be reminded of that.
Yeah, and it's funny too that like in this interaction, Amos comes across as very rude. But even Cedric in this moment is, like you said, he's trying to say, hey, Cedric is very kind and charitable.
He is very, very
gracious.
He's a very good representative of Hufflepuff House in that regard.
Like even people will look at me and they'll say, Bias, you're a Hufflepuff. And I'm like, nah, he's just a great dude.
No, he's really
just a great
is.
Dude.
Like and because we'll remember that when the Dementors and everything happened, Cedric was the one who tried to basically get them to throw the game out so they could just rematch, but he had already caught the snitch, so the game was already over. He's like throwing
the golden snitch back out. I didn't catch it.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't. No, it flew into my hand, but I didn't close it.
Run it back. All right.
Yeah.
Run it back. I also like the idea of picturing him in his head. I'm so good that I could do this again.
Exactly. He's like, yeah, I want us to be fair. I want to win fair and square.
Mm-hmm. But I got 3 strikes here for Amos Diggory. So my notes say Arthur introduces everyone to Amos, and strike 1 is him jumping over Hermione. Amos does. So when Arthur introduces them, you know, Amos goes, "Are all of them your kids?" Arthur, "Oh no, just the Gingers." And he goes, "This one's Hermione and this one's Harry Potter." And he doesn't even go, "Oh, hi, Hermione." He goes, "Harry Potter?"
Yeah.
Skipping over the brightest witch of her age. That's not cool. Strike number 2 is bragging, like we said, about Cedric beating Harry, even though, like as Harry said, or as Cedric said, there were some other things going on.
Yeah.
You know, he fell off his broom. And strike 3 is insulting Harry on the heels of that, of him saying, well, one guy falls off his broom and another doesn't. And then he has the nerve to say to a child, we know who the better flyer is.
Better flyer is, yeah.
And then he says, the better man won. I was like, I don't think I would use that term for sports, you know, for a competition. I don't think
no.
that applies to like your personal character applies to your ability as far as your athletic ability.
It's also just, it's so fascinating because I just think that, like, I love this moment just because I think it is very real, right? Like, I have a mom who absolutely would not blink twice before, like, bragging about something that I or my sister accomplished and wouldn't care about how other people felt about it in the moment. She'd be like, yeah, so, you know, let me just tell you the story and so I think it's so
she's out there.
So
go check
real.
Out his podcast. He's so much
my
fun.
gosh. Yeah, she's just, and so I think that there's a way that this is such a real thing, and I don't want to diminish like the underlying, love that it displays for Cedric, but I do think that it is very callously delivered.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just the self-awareness, not there.
Not there at all.
But we do like loving fathers, so
We do.
you get a win for that one, Amos. Anyway, it's port keying time. So they all gather around that manky old boot, and then 3, 2, 1, off they go, magically transporting themselves to the Quidditch World Cup. And that's the end of the chapter. Yay!
Yay, we did it again.
We did it again. And so, listeners, I must say, I only have one favorite line for this chapter. Like we said, it was a bit of a short chapter, kind of breezed through it quickly. Julian, do you have any favorite lines?
I do. I love this moment between Molly and the twins. When she calls, Accio, Accio, Accio. She shouted, and Toffee zoomed from all sorts of unlikely places, including the lining of George's jacket and the turn-ups of Fred's jeans. We spent 6 months developing those, Fred shouted at his mother as she threw the toffees away. Oh, a fine way to spend 6 months, she shrieked. No wonder you didn't get more OWLs. And I think it's so fascinating because I love this moment. One, because I'm like, I don't disagree with Molly on the front of, you are testing out these things on yourselves and on other kids, which is such a problem. I also do think it really sums up so much of the difference between kind of how they understand success.
Yeah, I think so too.
What's interesting is that Molly's completely ignoring the kind of brilliance behind some of what they've been able to pull off.
Yeah, before you dig too deep, there's a lot of that I want to say for the restricted section, because I think we can have more of a conversation about it.
Absolutely.
You're not spoiling anything more, but I think we can have a more rich discussion on that particular thing in the restricted section.
Yeah.
But so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no worries.
My favorite line from this chapter was, unless you had more thoughts on the two.
Oh no.
Okay.
We're good.
No, Barry, you told me to shut up. Fair enough. My other favorite line, or my one favorite line for this chapter was, when they're standing around the boot, they all stood there in a tight circle as a chill breeze swept over the hilltop. Nobody spoke. It suddenly occurred to Harry how odd this would look if a muggle were to walk up here now. 9 people, 2 of them grown men, clutching this manky old boot in the semi-darkness, waiting. And again, we talked about Harry's self-awareness before, but also, like, I just found this really funny because at the moment I work as a youth pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do youth events with my students, there are plenty of times that something might out in public just look so crazy to somebody looking from the outside. It's like, what is this grown man doing with this vast assortment of children? And why are they, like, just recently we hiked Stone Mountain and I had kids running everywhere. And I just thought it was a funny moment.
Yeah, there are so many moments where you are doing specific things, even when I'm teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a very animated professor, and so like when I see people walking by my classroom as the windows and because some of the doors, and they see me like gesticulating like really, really aggressively, I'm sure they're like, "What could he possibly be talking about?" And more often than not, it's Harry Potter, which is also very funny. But yeah, there are just those moments where you're like, "What is this? What's going on here?"
Yeah, if we were to zoom out and get some perspective on this is kind of funny. This is an odd look.
Exactly.
But that's all my favorite lines I have for this. Did you have any others?
I just had the one from Amos, and he says, "Sed's talked about you, of course. Told us all about playing against you last year. I said to him, Sed, that'll be something to tell your grandchildren. You beat Harry Potter." And again, I think it's something that's so specific because I'm like, there are not a lot of people who are going to be able to say that. And I love that moment because it captures such a parental like moment of like, you're already talking about grandkids. This person, this child has like, we don't know that Cedric has any prospects at this current time. He's just going to this game. Like, and you've already projected out how you're going to be able to brag about this one like Quidditch match against Harry. And I really love that moment because I think we can talk about it a little later, but like that it really sets the stage for a lot of the stuff that we experience of him later on in the text.
Yeah. And it is, like you said, it's a very, very parental thing. There's so many times my dad, one of the things he often says to me is like, son, so many people look back and they think, wow, those were the days. But what I hope for you is when you're living in awesome periods of life, take a moment to appreciate it. Like in what this, or before in a big event, he's often the one that will remind me, son, this is a big thing. Enjoy it. Like, don't just, sometimes it can just be going through the motions, or you might be dreading X, Y, or Z about it, but enjoy this part. So yeah, very parental in that nature, or in that way.
I love that.
So now moving on to our transfigurations. And so listeners, I told you we were going to have a few more, all right, for this one. Differences that the books make or movies make from the books. Number one, at the beginning of this chapter, Molly Weasley wakes up the boys. But in the movie, it's actually Hermione that comes into the room, barges in, wakes them up. And we get that moment we talk about. We've said it like 3 or 4 times now, but Ron just uncomfortable in his sheets being like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. I also have Arthur doesn't tell them where they're going. So when they walk out, Harry asks, where are we going? Oh, we're going to a port key. And this is why it works that way and all this.
Yeah.
But in the movie, he just jokingly says, haven't the foggiest. And they keep walking along. Also, in the movie, Harry touches the port key last minute. And so in the book, everybody's already holding it. But in the movie, they're like 1, 2, and Arthur, Harry, you got to do it. And he grabs on. There's also no fight with Molly in the movie. All right, whenever they leave, there's she's not upset about anything.
That whole plot line of the Weasley, that's all, and it's nowhere to be found in the entirety of it. So, which makes it then, when we see it, it doesn't it almost feels like it came out of nowhere. Yeah, it really does.
And that's one of the things I love about going through the books again, is with these omissions. It's easy to sit down and watch a movie, but so that you tend to often think of just the movie stuff, but when you sit down and see it's extra content, readers. All right.
Yeah.
We also, funny thing, and I've heard a lot of podcasters joke about this, but when we meet Amos and Cedric, first of all, we don't meet them at the top of the hill. We meet them on the way to the port key. But also, Cedric jumps out of a tree.
Just like randomly
jumps out of a
comes
tree.
Out. Yeah, it's like foreshadowing for Batman or something. It's so strange.
Maybe. It is one of a very interesting character introduction. So yeah, he just jumps out of a tree, and the strapping young lad must be Cedric. So that's interesting. And then last one, transfiguration for this. Port keys work differently in the movies. And so in the book, the way they work is it's probably easier to say the movie first. In the movie, if you touch it, the moment you touch it, I think you can all, not the moment, but very close to it, you can all go away. They don't make mention that they're a timed thing. It's almost like you set a timer as soon as you get to it. But in the book, you could walk around with it and it would not do anything until the time went off. And that's made more clear with another object later in the movie, that the movie kind of treats it more instantaneously. But anyway, that's all we got for transfigurations. Moving on now to our golden snitches. So golden snitches for this chapter. Let's see. First, we have apparition. We talked about it a little bit before in a golden snitch section, but because they said it so many times in this chapter, I thought I'd make mention of it again. Apparition was a form of magical transportation in which the user traveled instantly from one location to another without traversing the space in between. This was accomplished by having the user focus on a desired location in their mind and then purposely disappearing from where they stood to reappear at the desired location. It's the fastest way to travel. It was disastrous if botched. We'll talk about that in a second, but certain creatures could also disapparate. House elves can do it, and they're much better at it than anybody else. Phoenixes, Diracals, and Zowus can apparate. The range of apparition was limited. So there's a moment way later in another book where one character, he's super far away, and he has to travel closer before he can actually apparate to the location he wants to go to. So you can't just be in America and then apparate to the UK. There's a limited distance. I wonder if you're a better wizard, if you can apparate farther, if that has anything to do with it. But
that's normally how the lore goes. It's like the more powerful you are, the further you can go. But that in a lot of the post-canonical stuff, they have these points where it's like, in different places, in different countries, like you kind of have to leapfrog your way. You have to apparate from one place to another.
I like that term. I've never heard that term, post-canonical. I like that a lot. That seems to me so somebody will make mention cursed child, and a lot of people don't consider that canon. And it's like, yeah, but she had her hand in it. So I don't know how I feel, but I like the term post-canon for it. And I love Hogwarts Legacy, and I like, maybe I can call that. I'm going to start using that. I like that.
Do it. It's yours. You have it.
Thank you. The other thing to note about apparition is that some places could be like guarded against it. So for example, you cannot apparate in and out of Hogwarts Castle.
Unless you're a house elf.
Unless you're a house elf. Like we said, they're a little bit more talented than some of the others. The other thing to make mention was you can also do side-along apparition where you can take somebody with you. And then, like we said, you have to take a licensing test. More on that later, listeners, when our students are actually taking them. And the last thing that I wanted to note about apparition is derived from the word apparo, which is Latin for appear or I become visible. And according to Wombat, it is very likely the intercountry apparition has been outlawed due to extreme splinching. So that's another reason why you can't travel super far distances, because two countries have to agree to it, and also they rarely do. So moving on now, listeners, to our next golden snitch, we have splinching. Yay!
No.
Not yet. Yeah, there's a gruesome picture of a future character who gets splinched on the wiki, listeners. Splinching was what occurred when a witch or wizard apparated or disapparated unsuccessfully, leaving part of their clothes or body behind them in their former location. The degree of splinching could range from minimal, such as loss of hair, to life-threatening, such as loss of flesh, muscle, or bone. The damage was usually repairable. And in the chapter, Harry even thinks about somebody leaving their leg and eye behind when they go somewhere else. And it's just so funny how Arthur talks about it in the chapter, because he goes, oh, they were fine. They're just fine. I don't know if they were. So more things about splinching. According to Wombat, it may be possible to prevent bad luck by turning on the spot 3 times and deliberately splinching one's thumbs. So it's like, I'm going to preemptively splinch myself? I don't like that.
No.
But that doesn't seem correct, because according to Wilkie Twycross, who we meet later, listeners, the splinched body parts are random, meaning it is impossible to deliberately splinch the thumbs. So you can't ever be in control of what gets splinched. Probably for the best. Moving on now, our next one, port keys. Port keys were magical objects enchanted to instantly bring anyone touching it to a specific location. In most cases, a port key was an everyday object that would not draw the attention of a muggle. As we may mention before, traveling by port key was said to feel like having a hook somewhere behind the navel, pulling the traveler to their location. Wizards who could not apparate preferred this method. And then the other thing to mention is that there are unauthorized port keys. Port keys have to be approved by the government, apparently. You can't just make one for funsies, although it can happen. The term port key originates from the French porter, meaning to carry, and the English key in the sense of a secret or trick. So it's, I carry a secret, is what you would translate it as, I guess.
Wow.
So the very last golden snitch for this chapter, we have the summoning charm. The summoning charm was a charm that summoned an object toward the caster. It was able to summon objects in direct line of sight to the caster, as well as things out of view by calling the object aloud after the incantation. The hand movement for the charm, it's like a little rainbow. Listeners, if you're audio or if you're a visual listener, you see this on YouTube, but nobody else. The spell needed thought behind it, and the caster had to clearly visualize the object in their mind before trying to summon it. Any distraction would make the spell ineffective. The opposite of the summoning charm was the banishing charm. I do like how it mentions some of the things that you notice as you join the larger fandom is some people say words differently. And so, like certain characters' names are pronounced differently, but one is Accio. And so some people say Accio, some say Accio. And Julian, which way do you swing?
I am an Accio.
You're an Accio.
Accio guy. Yep.
I am an Accio guy as well. And so the last thing I wanted to mention on this is that there apparently was, I thought this was funny. Where is it? The summoning charm was one of the oldest known to Wizarding Society. The spell's most famous use, according to Miranda Goshawk, was by the Achionites and their leader, Gideon Flatworthy. And so, who's that, Barry? Don't worry, listeners. I looked it up for you. Apparently, the Achionites were like some very not nice people. They were anti-Muggle, and Gideon Flatworthy was their leader. And he was, if you look him up, he is a very, very large man. He said he was so lazy that he never got up to get anything himself. He would just accio things to himself. And the way that, and I guess the famous mention of this, two things he did that were rather notable about his accioing. One was he could accio gold out of Gringotts Bank. That's how talented he was of a summoner. The other thing, though, sadly, is that the way he died was that when he wanted to build a farm, he accioed all of the farm animals and food to himself, and the hay crushed him. So that's one way to go, listeners. It's one way to go.
Be careful, everyone. Don't summon everything.
Be careful what you summon, all right? Preach it.
That's a sermon.
That's a sermon right there. And so, listeners, that's all we have for our main part of our episode. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. We're about to head into our restricted section. This is the part of the episode where we get into spoiler topics. And, it's previously we've called it some fun things like the Prison of Azkaban, the Chamber of Secrets, the third floor corridor. This chapter or this book, I've been thinking it's the graveyard. It's the graveyard section as well.
Okay.
So, if you do not want spoilers, if you get out of here, this is just for those who have read further ahead. But before you go, all right, all of our unspoiled listeners, thank you again. Please check out Julian's podcast. Julian, where can they find you?
Critical Magic Theory, wherever you cast your pods. You can find me on Instagram at prof.jw or on TikTok at profw. And yeah, that's pretty much everywhere. If you Google Critical Magic Theory, I'll pop up.
I'll be there. And
I'll be there.
If you follow his Instagram, listeners, you'll get to see cool sweaters and his wonderful beard.
It's true. It's true.
But yeah, thank you, listeners, and goodbye. All right, restricted section time. So I have a list. How about I go through my list, and if there's anything left you want to talk about, you could throw it out there. So the first thing I made note of, this will sound weird at first, so hang with me for a moment. I wrote down Hermione's teeth. When Hermione is first introduced to us, she's described as having larger front teeth, but it's never brought up again. Like it's not made mention of again, at least not to my memory after podcasting. At least it's even
not until later on in this book.
Yeah, and so like in the first book it's said, but I don't recall it being a thing in the second or third book. And I think the reason that it's mentioned, it's explicitly stated when she is introduced in this book. And I think it's because of what happens later in the book in that incident with Snape, where her teeth are grown even larger and then they're shrunk back down to normal size. And so this is meant to be like a reminder to the reader, hey, she has this. Don't forget about that. So I thought that was interesting.
I think it's just to remind us so that, because then it's because it's two bound in this book, right? Where it's the first is when it gets hit, but the second is when she goes out with Victor Crumb to the Yule Ball, and that's when people are like, "Wait, you did something." That's the first time people actually realize that Ron is like, "You did something to your teeth."
I love that moment so much because she's just like, she's so giddy about it. And like, hee, I did it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, and she's like, my parents wanted me to do braces, but this is a lot easier and better. And it's like, I love that moment as well because it's also a moment where we get to see that Hermione, who is like generally confident about a lot of things, also has like the same kinds of insecurities as anybody else her age.
And it's just the cute giggling thing of I broke the rules, because her parents didn't want her to. So yeah, I enjoy that for her because the whole incident where it happens, it is the moment that I hate Snape the most. I absolutely despise that moment with Snape. The other thing I wanted to mention was Percy says several times that Barty Crouch is interested in Bertha Jorkins. Like he doesn't say it so explicitly, but he makes the deal that Barty is upset that Bagman hasn't figured this out yet.
Ludo's not like trying to figure out where she's at.
And it's sort of couched in the terms of because Bagman it just annoys Barty. It's not any
Right.
more significant reason. But then Percy says, however, Bertha used to be part of his department, and I think they got along I think they were very well familiar with each other. And it's, as those who have been spoiled, we know that it's because Bertha knows Barty Crouch's dirty secret about Barty Crouch Jr. So that's why he wants Bertha found, so that...
And also, he's the reason why her brain is destroyed, because he placed that memory charm on her and completely rattled her. And I think he's like freaking out because, she knows, but also like I think in some ways I think he's less concerned about the charm being, or like her revealing the secret. But I think that he's afraid that people are going to figure out like, oh, you did this to her. Like you are the one who placed this memory charm on her that like led her to do this. I hate that man.
Yeah, he is one of my least favorite characters in the series for sure.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next one I have is that we get a name drop of the Lovegoods and the Fawcett's. Okay, when they're talking about who lives in that area.
Who lives in the area, yeah.
Just a fun little thing there. My last three. One is the Portkey. I wrote down Portkey and Voldemort. And so it's always made joke of, why didn't Voldemort make his Horcruxes these like dingy normal things? Somebody will say, I've seen it on Instagram a few times in memes, like he should have just made it a rock and thrown it in the ocean. It seems to work with Portkeys, Muggles leaving them alone. And so I just thought that was funny. The other one, and the post-canon work, Cursed Child, Amos is able to be deceived and made use of by the antagonist in the story because of his great love for Cedric. At least I haven't seen it yet. I've read parts of it. I'm going to see it next year. So
don't read anymore. Leave it alone. don't read it, but do see it.
I know that's what everybody's told me, is that the book terrible, the play
horrendous.
Wonderful.
Yeah. You need the visual component of it for it to. It will never make quite a lot of sense, but it will be enjoyable just to be able to see it.
And I'm big on that. Things don't need to make sense to be fun.
Yeah. I've seen it 3 times, 4 times.
Nice. Okay.
And all of its iterations and all the different different ways. But
it'll be Atlanta in March, and so that's when we're going.
It is such an amazing experience. So I'm really excited for you.
But the note about it, we were saying how much Amos loves Cedric in this chapter, and again that comes forth again in Cursed Child.
Yes, it does.
And then the last one I had was Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. And so this is what we were talking about earlier. I guess the thing I was going to say on it was along the lines of, yes, like you said, I get why Molly's upset, but also I'm also upset with her for, not expanding her definition of success in that moment and seeing the potential that her sons have, because they are geniuses. Hermione even calls them geniuses at one point, and they're definitely showing that they're willing to work hard and be disciplined about this thing.
Yeah.
So I liked how you said it, though. It's like, I'm your parent. I'm helping you along. You probably shouldn't be disobedient, but also parents should recognize this ability in them.
Yeah, I think it's tricky though, because Fred and George, their talent is often so mingled with rule breaking and lawlessness that I think it's probably really difficult to disentangle those things, because like even in these books, right, like they are literally blackmailing ministry officials. They're testing these like illegal candies on kids. Like I think there's a way that, and even when she goes to the joke shop in Half-Blood Prince, she's still like so wary of it, because she's like, this is like,
I guess it works.
Yeah, it works, but also like at what cost? I think she literally says at one point, like, they'll be slaughtered in their sleep. Because I remember, because we were talking about this on the most recent episode of Mugglecast that I was on, and we were talking about that chapter, and I just think it's
poo.
Yes, the poo, and I think that she just worries about them, because I think they give her the most to worry about, and I feel like this is just how her mothering shows up for them, is like trying to get them on a path that she believes is the best path. And I think that that's where a lot of people are very critical, and rightfully so, very critical of her for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it all comes from a good place.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that's very important to me and my wife when we disagree is intent. It's like, I may have said something awful, but what was my intent? And that kind of helps us swallow the thing better, and be able to get through discussions more. And in the same way, I like what you said, Molly's intent is nothing but love. She might not know where their talents can take them, and appreciate them for what they are. But she is a very incredibly loving mother. And the big spoiler, like we said, listeners, is that it does pay off for them. They do end up being able to create a joke shop, and it turns into a wonderful thing for them in Diagon Alley. So that's all my spoiler stuff. Did you have anything?
I'm trying to think. Are there any other things? Oh, the big thing for me was just like the love that Amos has for Cedric, and how even at the end of this book, like even before we get to the kind of post-canonical lore, like the heartbreak is so real for him, because like when he loses Cedric, it's so clear that like so much of the hopes and dreams that he had were for Cedric and thinking about. And so that like, despite this moment in this chapter that's really annoying and off-putting, it's like, it really sums up in a lot of ways how much he loves this child, and and it makes the moment then at the end when Harry brings Cedric's body back so much more gut-wrenching.
Yeah, I think that moment in the movie is,
oh my gosh,
it's the for one, I think it's that's really when Daniel starts to be an amazing actor. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with his acting at all beforehand, but it's right in that moment where he's sobbing over Cedric's corpse, and then followed up with Amos and his yell, "My boy, that's my boy." Two incredible performances right there. But yes, I agree. This is just an awesome. It's just an incredible love that he has for his son, and even at the expense of others, but it makes it that much worse when it gets taken away.
Yeah.
Well, that's really all I got to discuss. Did you have anything else?
No, I'm good if you're good.
I'm so good. This was fantastic.
It was.
It was. Julian, thank you so much for being here. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. I've really enjoyed listening to you, reading some of your work, and hearing you on Instagram and your podcast and on MuggleCast. This was something, like I said, really look forward to it. I'm so happy you agreed to do this. I'm so grateful. Thank you for spending your time on this. You will forever be welcome back at Retold. And yes, thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun, and I can't wait to hear it and to be brought back.
Yeah. It was just, like I said, doors open. Next week, we'll be covering chapters 7 and 8 with Brett's Thoughts, if you know him from YouTube.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have him on too. He's that, listeners, if you don't know him, you probably already do. But if you don't, I saw he went viral because of that, at least as far as my knowledge goes, from that one reel he created where he's looking at the scene in Half-Blood Prince, and he's pointing at Ginny, and he goes, and you'll notice, people, well, the thing they changed here in this movie is they forgot to give Ginny any freaking personality. And I was like, oof.
Yeah, brutal.
But anyway, we'll have him on next week. But that's all we got for this week. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Retold. Artwork for this podcast was created by Rachel Ortlip. Music was created by Taylor Jarvis. And the Retold podcast is produced by me. That's right. I made this.